Hi. Thank you for coming to Northern Museum for another lunchtime lecture. So today we've got Julia and John that will tell you all about Scunthorpe Folk Club. I'm really excited to learn a lot more. We have no fire drills scheduled, so if there is a fire alarm, we'll all go through there. Follow me. And there's toilets downstairs in the reception, and some of you are very good already. And I was going to say, if anybody is happy to fill out these forms, they really help us with getting Arts Council funding. And then we're going to have free events like this. So it would be lovely if you could put the time to do that. And you can keep the pen. As you say, Lynn said, if you fill it in. There. Yeah, that's all the stuff that I've got. And then I'll pass on to Julia and John. So enjoy.
Bring up the next slide, please. Right, well, thank you very much for coming. It's wonderful, so many people. Apparently there's about 15 people watching online as well. So I've got this little microphone here, but they hopefully will be able to hear us. And I don't know how they're going to hear John when he speaks. I may have to give it my left breast. Not again. But I mean, I'm a bit of a fraud doing this because I only came to the area in 1983 and I first went to the Photo Club in January 1984. So John wasn't there right at the beginning either, but very close to the beginning. But there are people in this room who were there right at the start and they've been involved in the research for today. And I'm so grateful to them and people who are not here as well for giving us lots of interviews, some of which have got all sorts of libelous stuff on it, which I'm going to have to destroy because they can't possibly hear it. They can't hear it really, can they, Jill? No. And Chris Robinson, who I'm afraid isn't here with us, some of the stuff she told me as well. But, you know, that's for the pub afterwards, I think, rather than a public lecture. So this just tells you what we're going to cover today. And this is the only slide I'm going to show you with text on it. So we're going to look at the history of the Folk Song Club and how it started and the guests who went there. We've got all sorts of bits to show you on that. We can also take it wider because the Scunthorpe Folk Song Club was more than just a place people went on a Sunday night. It had so many offshoots. It had bands and singers and dance groups and productions and all sorts of things. So we're going to bring it right up to date to go through all of those things as well. And use the memories of those who appeared and were involved at the time. But we also want yours. So I know there's a lot of you in here who probably have things to tell us about your memories of Scunthorpe Folk Song Club and its associated sort of incorporation. So please just join in and hopefully there'll be time at the end for us to have a little bit of a chat about that as well. I'm sure there will. So we're going to look at that and the folk scene now, right the way up to date. And what still goes on, and we're going to try and plug that as well, so that you go out of here with some things that you'd like to go to in the future. So the next slide then. Okay, so here we have the earliest photos, which we were so chuffed to get. And as a lot of you may know, the very first folk song club was in the Good Companions Hut, as others call it, rather than hall, on East Common Lane. So we're just going to play you in a minute a song about that. But before we do, just to point out who these are. And I imagine some of you will know who these are. This is John Robinson, Chris Robinson's husband. This is a picture she took of him. This is the only picture that we have of the hut behind him. So that's on East Common Lane. It actually looks like a warehouse to me.
It was a Nissan.
It was a Nissan. Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's the only picture we have of that. And these were taken, well, this one at least was taken inside. I'm not sure about that top one. No. And do we know who these people are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah? Is this then? Yeah, we just heard him singing earlier. We've got the tracks that you were listening to were actually recorded some in the 70s. The 70s.
No,
This is going on.
do they?
Yeah, you knew him well.
You don't remember him again.
This is
Jan Hall.
Jan and Jeff.
Jan and Jeff Hall.
Jan and Jeff Hall. I never knew them, so I knew Johnny very
They
well.
were formed a group called the Prickly Bush. It took, who was the one in the middle at the top?
The one in the middle in the top. That's
Yeah.
Jeff Hall again. Yeah.
Okay.
And then next to him is Mohawk, the exhibition for which you probably just popped in and had a look at if you haven't already done. I know a lot of you have seen it before. So, yeah, the earliest pictures. Right, let's have a listen. Next slide, please. Let's just have a listen to a track. Oh, hang on. Go right back to the beginning.
I've been to Gary, Indiana. Guess we have PA. See the scent of dust that constant smell the smoke on Swansea Bay. And all the mills in Sheffield, they're all steel just the same. But a furnace never burns so bright as down east Common Bay. Good companions, huts long gone, where I first learned the Ewan song. Johnny David Moore, they sang as the sad refrain. And listened hard between the lines, along for love and hard times. All the old back the signs, let me home again. I've been to Gary, Indiana. Bethlehem, PA, seen the scent of dust that comes and smell the smoke on Swansea Bay. And all the mills in Sheffield, they're all steel just the same. When the sun is so bright, down east Common.
A lot of you will know Martin Simpson and maybe seen him doing concerts in massive sort of venues these days. Lives in Sheffield these days, where the steel must be in his blood. I spent quite a lot of time in America. He's probably known to be one of the best guitarists internationally, not just locally. And of course, he learned his craft, didn't he, at that mut. You know, I think. If anything, he's probably the most famous person on the folk scene who came out of Scunthorpe. There's been a few others. So, yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So the folk club, as I say, started in the Companions Hall, but it wasn't there for that long. And I mean, one of the members who was in that first group of people was, of course, Paul Empson, who ran Paul's music shop for many years, Paul and Margaret Empson. And with that group of people, Johnny Walker, Jill Walker, Charlotte Walker, Paul Tierney, there were a number of people who then decided they needed more space and they needed to start booking guests. So they went to the Oswald, which doesn't really look like that now, does it? If you go down Scunthorpe High Street, I'm aware there's people who know the area and people who don't know the area, and online maybe. So there's some pictures there of the Oswald as it was in the day, but it probably looks a bit like this at the time. Do you remember the Oswald? Did you go?
Yes, there was a bar. This was the bar, and then there was a concert hall, which used quite extensively during the Second World War for entertainment troops and the like. But yeah, it was the main concert hall that the folk club was in, I don't remember. And I only went there a couple of times.
Yeah. And it wasn't there that long though, was it?
I don't think so.
No. So then we moved on again, please. Okay. And we moved. They moved actually. You'll see in a minute to St Martin's. But they moved in 1967 so that they could book guests, and these were the first guests that were booked. And there's some fairly, again, depends if you're into the folk scene or not, but there's some fairly big names there. And consider it, and what we have, which is absolutely wonderful, is we still have the records of all of the guests that were booked and what it costs at the time. You'll see some clips of those on the screen in a minute, but you want to have a look at the end. We've got the original books that Dave Barlow kept. So we've actually got the records of who, when, what's it cost. And they didn't used to produce flyers then. I don't know how you got the word out. I said, how did you get the word out? You didn't have flyers.
Just word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
And of course, it's the 60s and there was a folk revival at the time. So people were getting more and more interested in local music and with the likes of Mo and John. I think John, we start with sort of like country sort of music. You know, moved on to folk.
Well, just with his family.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, because there was the family out at Caister, weren't there?
I mean, we used to watch the things on television, people like Julie Felix, the
Yeah.
Boris and things like that. That's where it all started.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there was a real excitement in the country in the 60s about English traditional music, but also a lot of the American folk music that was coming over. And you know, the people who started at the club, I think it reflected those different types. I mean, Stefan Grossman is probably better known as a jazz guitarist. And the Ian Campbell folk group, that was Scottish, I think. Yeah.
But from Birmingham.
Yeah.
Oh, Birmingham.
Well, it's near Scotland.
John used to sing one of his songs. So that's good.
Yeah.
I remember very well.
Yeah.
They had a TV programme called Something to Sing About in the 60s and 70s. I think they had Dave Strawbs with them early on.
Yeah.
Some good, and he wrote some brilliant songs. Ian Campbell.
Weirdly, I was in Manchester at a folk history event last week, and a friend of mine, Pat Ryan, you'll see she's in the books because she was booked. She mentioned the Graham sisters. I'd never even heard of them. She said, "Oh, those mad Irish women," was her description of them. And I mentioned it to you, John, and you remembered you meeting up with them when you went to Ireland.
When we were in Ireland with Mo, Mo would, oh, the Graham sisters, I know that. And so we found out that Bernie Graham had a bar in Boyle, which was where we were staying there, and go around there, introduced himself, played a few tunes, and of course he'd get the bar in Ireland, played a few tunes. The next day, there's a few more musicians there. So that's for the midday sessions. You couldn't go in the evening. We got, but the lunchtime sessions were brilliant.
Right, so there we've got some little snippets out of the book that show you the records that were kept at the time. You can, I think you can just see at the top, the very first artist, Trevor Lucas. He cost £19. That was probably an awful lot of money, I would have thought, in 1967. I love the way it says there, ledger, pens and stationery, £1.20. Folk Federation expenses, £1.50. Rent, £3. Membership cards, £3.60. So we've got the records going right through in those books of who was booked and what it cost and their accommodation costs. I mean, a lot of the time, people who ran the club would put them up at their houses. So, yeah,
That's pre-definite.
yeah, it will be all pre-decimal.
It's about Madam Pride for 11 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next one, please. Right, so these are a couple of the pubs. I couldn't find any other pictures of the Queensway, but these are a couple of the pubs that then it went to after the Oswald. So it went to the Crosby, which is in a very sad state of disrepair now, as you've been round that end of town. I think it must be listed, so they can't knock it down, but they can't do anything else with it either. And we have a memory from then, actually. I'll just read. From the Crosby, if I can just find it, and this is from Chris Robinson. My first visit to the club was a gig at the Crosby and seeing the Prickle-Eye Bush sing the song of the same name, and my friend buying me a drink at the bar because I was underage. So I think she was about 14 or 15 when she went there. And I think, you know, the thing about the folk scene then was it was a young scene. It was what young people were into. And there is a little bit of a growth of that again now. There has been maybe for the last 10 years, but it tends to be in the university towns where there's a lot of young people rather than somewhere like Scunthorpe, unfortunately. They moved on to the Queensway, and Chris and others have recalled that the landlord of the Queensway wrongly accused the folk club of harbouring someone smoking weed. So they got chucked out. and they left immediately for the Berkeley, which we will see in a minute, and they didn't go back. And we've got lots of stories from that to come up. But yeah, both of these pubs were temporary homes for the club.
Well, I remember when we went to the Berkeley, I wasn't going that often because I was working down in Wales. One of my friends came in from Wales, Ralph Tomlins, who was a good guitarist, a good singer. And I said, "Oh, sing that song." He said, "Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant." And it was Benzodrine, and then just moved from the club into the club.
Yeah, there's another memory from John Davis. Do you want to read that one? Yeah, it's the bottom one. Yeah. So John Davis lives in Wales now, but he was a stalwart member of the club. And he again came when he was only a teenager. This is one of his memories.
I remember the first time we went to the club. It was at the Queensway to see Nick Jones in July 1972. I was probably only 16. He was playing in standard tuning then. The sun was streaming as he played Rufford Park poachers, and I was mesmerised and blown away to find out that his song was collected in Lincolnshire. It switched me on to a traditional song, especially ones from Lincolnshire. He was my hero. The standard of resident singers was incredible. Martin Simpson was still going to the club at that time, and the Prickle-Eyed Bush and others were amazing. We had some great nights at the Berkeley. The Battlefield band playing a set in the boxing ring set up this room was a highlight. They had boxing on a Monday. They used to set the boxing ring up onto it with a big turn in the concert hall to use the boxing ring. Had quite a number of turns there.
So there's an excerpt from Dave Barlow's records here for the when they went to the Berkeley. And you just noticed on their Berkeley Hotel, rent for room, £10.50. But I believe that was the only time he ever paid rent at the Berkeley, wasn't it? Yeah, because he brought in so many people, he sold so much beer, he said, right, you can have it for free.
So it was great. It was good to have Jerry back.
Yeah. So they were the heyday, I would say, of the folk club was when it was first at the Berkeley. It did go back to the Berkeley many years later when it was more in its sort of period of declining. But in the heyday, it was in the Berkeley at that bar. And I took this off their website at the moment, but I don't think it was that different then, actually. No. And so we would meet in the bar, and we'd be facing away from the bar there. And when I first came to the folk club, it was actually in the workroom, we'll see in a minute, but then we went back here. And we used to use the bigger room at the back, the function room, if we had somebody really big on for a caling, dance, that sort of thing. And that was where the boxing ring was set up. Because
Most of the folk now for in that.
in the big room, oh,
In that.
yeah. Yeah, not the second time, well, the first time when it was there. Yeah, I've got a memory from Pat Ryan. She says, I remember there being a boxing ring in the back room. It was huge. It was a great club, and Johnny Walker was a lovely man and a good MC. It was also a long way home on a Sunday when I was teaching on a Monday. I think that's one of the things that's different about the folk scene now. In those days, pretty much every folk singer had a proper job. They did folk singing as their hobby and earn more money, and maybe they would have liked to have made it a job, but very few were able to. Whereas I think now that's quite different. You can go and do a degree in folk music at about 3 different universities. There's all sorts of young people getting into it and wanting to make a career of it, and you know they're learning performance skills and sound recording skills and all of that. But it's actually really difficult to make a living out of it because it's not commercial. The thing about folk music is it's not part of the commercial scene, so there isn't the money there. So they often have to have second jobs, but they're maybe things like teaching or music production that are related to their first love of folk music. Yeah. Okay, next one. So it's just thought you'd show you some of these. There's a whole load of these that have been sort of donated so that we can, in fact, there's some in the exhibition already next door of the people that appeared. So I'm just going to sort of leave those up there for you and see if anybody's got any memories of any particular ones. Yeah, yeah. And then I'm going to remember the come all years were nights when the locals, the resident folk singers who were there every week, got up and did their sort of 2 songs or whatever, and they were still great, weren't they? The quality was so high.
Johnny Walker, what he called a team of resident singers. So if you were a resident, you got in free, but if you were asked to sing, you had to sing. But that was the idea, to keep the club going. But if you asked to sing, and there wasn't room to fit you in because the guest was on, you also had to stand down as well. So we probably give him a spot, say, John, say, get a bit short of time, can we just leave it as good? If that's that, because we really want to see it, yes.
Yeah. But John was quite particular about standards.
He was, yes.
Yes.
There was one singer who was a regular in the club, and he said to John, "You did the first one I liked a bit. Can you put me on in the second hour for this guest?" John said, "No, you're not good enough, mate."
We noticed we've not mentioned his name, but I might tell you later. He's not here. Okay, next slide, please. So this is, again, there's at least one person in here that's seen that picture. No, two of you were here.
Who's that?
Yeah, Liz and Stephen here. So we'd have special nights at the folk club. I'd say we, because this was before I joined, but yeah, special nights at the folk club, like a musical night.
Musical nights.
Yeah, and people would dress up and do specific type of song. This is my lovely neighbour, Bob Cleveland, who is not with us anymore. And of course there's Mo there as well, Johnny again. So let's go on to the next slide, please. There's a few more flyers from that period there, a few more names you might recognise, including some ones who were booked many, many times. And again, we have that record of who was booked when and how many times they were booked as well.
Observation, I think the late Roy Bailey was Martin Simpson's partner.
He was, yes, yeah. He holds the record for the most times booked at the folk club. Yeah, we've got a slide on him later, but unfortunately, obviously, we couldn't get any background on that. But we have got some background from the second most booked person. Anybody want to guess who the most second booked person was after Roy Bailey? Another man with a lovely golden voice. And he is still with us. I talk to him on Facebook quite regularly. No, it wasn't actually. No. Although the golden voice is not what I was describing. So you will hear from Bernard in a minute, though. Yeah. A bit closer to here. Barnsley area. Dave Bernard. Yes. Yeah. So we've got a memory from Dave, actually, haven't we? Do you want to do that now? He was great. He sent me some great stuff. I'll stand next to you.
Yeah, that's the one. I do remember a Christmas do with myself, Tony Capstick, Dorothy and Derek Elliott. Towards the end of the night, all on the stage singing a Christmas song. The place was with people singing their hearts out. There was an altercation at the bar involving a friend of mine and Tony's and a big lad who I didn't know. It was a scuffle more than a fight. Capstick jumped off the stage, ran on the tables and dived into the melee. His feet never touched the ground. It was decided it was a mistake. That aside, it was a great club with great resident singers, Marlon included.
And then there's a little bit underneath from John Baker actually about John Davis. Sorry, I was getting too mixed up.
Well, John Davis, singer at the club, remembered on one occasion when Dave refused to take the £30 fee at the end of the night. because he didn't think he'd been good enough. The organisers had to persuade him to take it.
So lovely man, and as I say, he got in touch when I asked him for his memories. So go on to the next one. Right, now, this is a little bit of an experiment. We're going to try now and play, we can't show you the actual clip.
No.
But you'll have to listen to it. It's a YouTube clip, which works beautifully on my computer, but unfortunately we can't do it in here because of the internet issues. So we're going to play you that clip to listen to, but you'll have to imagine Bernard Wrigley. Bernard Wrigley, that's him in Phoenix Nights. If you've watched that on the TV, that's him now. I think that was him in Coronation Street and in Emmerdale. So he's been a working actor. He was in the film Brassed Off as the union organiser, but he was also a very much a regular at the club. And he's been booked since. He was booked in Brig a few years ago. He's only just stopped doing gigs, just in the last 6 months. So now have a go at this. So listen.
Started from me. And we starting to write and play guitar. And then I realised that we actually all won competition treasures for all traditional music. And I'm a little fucking so. Well, cast your mind back in time to days when you were small. Happy times, loose me rounds and playing mates I recall. Ring the roses, handstands by the wall. Back in the old schoolyard. I don't want average chaps today thinks of folk music. I think they think that's just a load of weirdos. On the following Saturday, we got underway and we shipped on board the bar company. Well, but I think they are anyway. See, you can actually play this like that, but after a while it just ain't the same. People always reckon humour is the best way to get to an audience than if you stood up, told them they were bastards and sing the song, you know. Bridegroom made a speech and everyone was most impressed. He was very tall and handsome and exceedingly well blessed. He said, upstanding for the bride and upstood all the rest. I was playing you just follow me.
You can juxtapose the banal and the ordinary with ridiculous, and his ability to put things next to each other which shouldn't really go.
I'm at the age where food's taken over from sex, said Cousin Mabel. In fact, I've just had a mirror fitted above the kitchen table. If I sang all the time continually, it could end up fairly grating, I suppose. There's a bloke round the chemist and he's saying, do you sell Viagra? And did they work for you? And can you get it over the counter? Yes, said the chemist, if I take 2. And if you sit there, whole face saying, we think we ought not to laugh, then I don't mind, I can sing a more serious song. Pipes and drums and kegs of rum. But never a taster inside. Old sea loves from old sea dogs. Oh, never again see the time. Never know what the future will bring, you know. I've never planned anything. No point doing it now. Well, the mate began to shout, and he knocked the skipper out, and he heaved him up his backside with his big song. He laid him on the deck, wrapped his trousers round his neck, which was better than sticking them up his company.
Yeah, he's wonderful, Bernard. So we've just got a memory from him that he emailed me, so John will read that.
And I can't do the low voice. I knew I'd done a lot around Scotty, but I didn't realise I was booked at the club 17 times. Wow. I have many pleasant memories, especially of the Barclay. what a great club. I did a concert there with Jake Thackeray, and he said, "You want to go along in the main spot instead of me?" As if that was Jake all over. I stayed at Johnny Walker's house one time and then drove back over the Pennine the day after. I was the first vehicle over the newly fallen snow, a bit eerie. Made more so because I'd flogged my car radio to a plumber at the club the night before. I had to drive home in silence. I tried singing, but bored myself reach. I also did a concert at the swimming pool with Patrick Street, and it was odd when you realised you were singing suspended over the pool. John Davis also recalled Bernard staying with Paul Brown and put a radio in his car for him.
And some of you know Paul Brown and Caroline. They're actually online listening to this. So hello to them in France. Yeah, I mean, I probably could have gone on collecting memories like this for the next 3 years, but you know, time goes on. Right, we'll go on to the next slide, please. Oh, right, okay. Now, which one was that?
No, that's one that didn't work.
Oh, that's it. So here's a few more of people that you might remember if you went to the club, or you might know from the folk scene. And we've got a memory from Vicky. Yes, I'll do that now because it's a lady. Right. Yeah, Vicky Clayton, who now lives in New Zealand, comes over most years to do a tour. She'll be over again this summer. Performing or visiting at Scunthorpe Folk Club was always a big thrill. As a young person learning and hoping to become professional, I learned so much from visiting guests, but perhaps more from the excellent standard of the residents of the club. Outstanding memories for me, a velvet voice Bob, oh list to me, sorrowful lay. That was obviously the line from the song that she remembered me singing. And the guitar wizardry of Paul Empson, the guy who owned the guitar shop, and so many others, including Mo. Oh, so wonderful it all was. For my band, Ragged Heroes, it was always a joyous chance for us to rock out and be sure of a welcome. And my own solo gigs reassured me I was on the right track. Not many folk clubs held such a high standard, only a few. When I get to St Peter's Gate and they ask me for my best memories, I will have to include memories of Scunthorpe Folk Club. Couldn't get anything from the most famous person up there, but I don't have her email, so that's probably why. It's Barbara Dixon. Mick Jones, of course, was probably one of the best known folk guitarists and singers, traditional singers on the scene at the time. And then he had a really bad car accident, which meant he had to stop. He does, I believe, do a little bit with his son again these days. And of course, Martin Simpson, who is still singing at the age of 80 or so. Yeah, so that's from those ones. Right, next slide, please. Okay. Oh yeah, just got couple more memories. So Chris Foster and Ali Anderson. Just while John's finding Chris on there. Ali, of course, wrote the tribute to Maurice Ogg at the Air that he wrote, which is on the CD that we produced of Mo Ogg's songs. So he's been really, really supportive of the whole project, not just this part of it. So Chris Foster.
Chris Foster. Unlike many places I have played at, I do remember the Scunthorpe Club very well. I have a picture of the room in my mind's eye, and I remember it as one of the clubs I've always looked forward to visiting. Good audiences who really listened and got what I was doing and joined in the chorus and so on. I have a very clear memory of one night in particular, probably one of the later visits. Somehow everything clicked, and I was note perfect all night. Every song went exactly as it was supposed to. It was quite extraordinary. Even on very good nights, there's that odd bit that doesn't seem to come out right. As the evening went on, I remember that I had this strange feeling that something was bound to come unstuck before the end, but it never did. I don't remember who I was staying with that night, but I remember talking about how well everything had gone.
So I don't know which of you put up Chris Foster that night, but it was a good one. He now lives in Reykjavik, so that came all the way from Iceland. And then where's the other one? Ali Anderson.
Alice Anderson.
Yeah, Alice Anderson. Yeah.
I have happy memories of playing at the Scunthorpe Club as a soloist and also playing with high-level ranters for the Big K League, which I think was in Scunthorpe Bat, but organised by the club. The most significant memory of the club was the night I was there, and having played many tunes learned from Northumbrian's musicians, the chap came up and asked if I had ever heard of Billy Valentine. I was amazed, as Billy Valentine was a musician from the northwest of Northumberland, who had been recorded in the 1950s, but had zero profile by the 1970s. The person asking was McTell, Catherine's dad. Catherine's parents had grown up in Northumberland near the village of Walk and knew the local musicians of their parents and grandparents' generation, including Billy Valentine. Mike had been appointed as headmaster in the primary school in North Lincolnshire, and so when he saw an advert for a Northumbrian musician at Scunthorpe Folk Club, he came to investigate. Mike went on to become a good friend of Morris Og, who took the family to various folk music events in the area, and doubtless sparked Catherine's interest in music, which flowered, of course, on trips back to their grandparents with their musical connections, and really took off when the family moved back to the northeast a few years later.
And the thing about Catherine Tickell, for anybody who doesn't know, and she's a very, very famous Northumbrian player and fiddle player as well. But she's also used a lot by the commercial industry. She's been on a lot of Sting's albums because he's from that part of the world as well. So she's probably, again, one of the biggest stars. And she started coming to the pub as a little tiny girl. In fact, I think she's on one of the photographs that come up later.
Well, Chris Robinson also remembers them going to the Cambridge Folk Festival with lots of kids, including Catherine Tickell, who had to be tied to the tent post to stop her wandering off. Try to.
Next time, please. Right, so in its later years, just to complete the story of the folk club and where it went for the Scunthorpe people, it went to the Wortley House Hotel, and I just moved to the area to be the first marketing officer at Scunthorpe Civic Theatre, as it was called then, and I walked down there one night, and this is the thing about folk clubs, as if you're a woman on your own, you can't just walk into a bar, not unless you want a lot of trouble, but you can walk into a folk club. You can walk into a folk club, people chat to you, it's always really friendly, and that's still the case. And when I've worked away over the years, I've often done that. Rather than sitting in a hotel room all night on my own, just find where the local folk club is, or local folk sessions, and go along to it. And people always listen and take the time to speak to you, particularly if you sing, which I did. I used to get up and sing at the Wortley a lot. And I met my late husband there as well. And then it went to the Comet for a while, and that was unfortunately, it went back to the Barclay. Sorry, it went back to the Barclay, we'll come to that in a minute, and then it went to the Comet, and that was the last place that Scunthorpe Folk Song Club had a base. So, yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay. Right, so we've had Dave Berlin's memories because we did them out of think, so I've just mentioned a few of the people who were there, and you mentioned Roy Bailey in the audience. Again, 22 times Roy Bailey was booked between 1972 and 89. And absolutely wonderful singer of many protest songs, many political songs, which always went down really well. Yeah, that I can remember. Yeah, so there's Roy.
We had a wide variety from sort of topical songs to the burning times about the witches.
Yeah.
Amazing songs.
Yeah. No, unfortunately we've lost. So next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit now. We've done sort of the whole history of where the folk club went and everything. We're just going to move on a little bit because there's links to lots of other things, and as we hinted at, there were a lot of things that went on around the folk club. It was a community really, rather than just somewhere you went on a Sunday night for a bit of music. And when we started putting together the project on Moog, which I think everybody's aware of, there's leaflets on the chairs about it. Mo, of course, was a member of the folk club up until his death in 1980. And he was instrumental in starting the Stubble Jumpers Taylor Band. He was instrumental in getting the Colby Ploughjag play revived, and that's still going today. And members of that are in the audience. And he was interested in local history and local folk songs. He collected those songs, which are on the CD, which again you've got a flyer for on your seats. And he also collected a local dance, a brewing dance, and he drew the costumes and things which became the costumes for Ploughjag. So he wasn't just a singer, and I think what I wanted to try and show with this next section is there were lots of things that came out of the folk club that weren't just about people standing up and singing songs or playing tunes. They were to do with other aspects of art, and this is the thing quite often that I think people struggle with. I know my late husband used to struggle with this idea that folk music can be part of art. It is an art, isn't it? It's an art form. It's a creative art. It's a performing art. And I think Mo was a really good sort of example of that. Move on to the next slide. So just a few examples of the things that happened around the folk club scene, if you like, at different times. And this picture at the top, I think this is one of a series of pictures that Chris Robinson has donated to the museum for the Mo exhibition.
Loaned.
Was it loaned? Sorry.
Oh, good.
Loaned, yes. Because Mo is in that picture, a lot of other people we've seen, but a young Catherine Tickell is in some of those pictures as well, and a young Ginny Cleveland, my neighbour, Bob Cleveland's daughter. So I think that was at Alford, at the Folk Day at Alford in South Lincolnshire. We're not sure about this one. We know most of the people in it. Jerry's in it, aren't you?
On top one, yeah.
Yeah, it's you with hair. With red, sorry, dark hair.
Sure. I'm not sure, but I think
You're on the bottom one as well. Yeah.
on this one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, you are. Transports. This is from the Transports, which I'll talk about a bit later. And this is the Tatton Poles Morris group. Again, there's people involved in that here today. So there were lots of other things that came out of it. That's Paul Brown up there, who's listening in France, hopefully. Next to him, Steve. Jerry, who was the fiddler, still is the fiddler in many groups, but he was in Stubble Jumpers. That's Jez next to him. I didn't realise Jez was involved that far back, actually, when I saw this picture. Because to me, he came a bit later to the folk scene. I think somebody does know those two on that side, but I didn't know them. You recognise these two on this side, and the lady in front next to Roberta. Roberta was one of the founding members of the dance group. We're going to speak about in a minute. But yeah, so all sorts of groups. So we'll move on to the next one and explore that theme a bit further. So as I said, with Colby Ploughjag, it was a group of people who mostly went to the folk club.
Yeah.
A lot of them are singers. A lot of them are on the CD, the Mo's songs. These are more recent pictures. But also they were in other bands and things, and that, as I say, wonderfully is still going, and long may that continue. So next slide, please. And folk dance was another big thing that came out of this. And one thing I didn't realise, so I did this research, was I always wondered, why was it called Scunthorpe Folk Song Club? Because all the clubs in the town, in the country, were just called folk clubs. Yeah. But it was the folk song club. And it was because there was a folk dance club in the town at the time. Yeah, Scunthorpe Folk Dance Club, country dancing. And that was run by Keith Constable. John will remember Keith Constable, won't you? Yeah, he was the principal at John Leggett College in the town before it became I think it was a sixth form college when he was there. He was a member of that, not particularly involved in the folk club at all, but there was a little bit of crossover. This before the Lindsay Lasses, in terms of the Strawbs Jumpers, I believe, played for the folk dance group at a couple of events that they did.
So Keith got involved with the Ploughjag.
Yeah.
And he taught us the Kirby Melton, the sword dance.
Yeah. So that's it, because he'd been a member of Leeds Morris, and that was one of their dances. But then some of the lady dancers who were involved in the folk club, or at least married to people who were involved in the folk club, they decided to start some traditional English clog dancing, and the Lindsay Lassies was formed. Again, it's lovely to see these pictures of the Lindsay Lassies, which Steve managed to get hold of for me.
Can I just correct?
Yeah.
No, that's not Irene Curtis.
Is it?
Curtis.
Lord, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, do you know, I'm sat there doing this and it just, yeah, that should be Jean Fillingham, Andrea Curtis, Leslie Dale, and Steve Hyde.
Julia, actually, I was a member of that dance group. Now,
Yes.
That was that, you know, I disappeared at some point. Because there
You're
wasn't
just,
something.
you're just not telling you.
You're just not in any of the books still.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I have got a couple of others, but these are the best ones, I think, because I love the way they're actually all off the floor on that one. And you were taught by traditional dancer Lynette Eldon, weren't you? Yeah, Lynette and Jim Eldon were well known.
Back to the ferry. Take each other, take the back.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, back to the ferry to get across the Humber.
Yeah.
There was no bridge then. Yeah.
Chaos may understand that.
Yeah, yes, it's Julie there. Yeah. There's- Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's June as well.
see, when I was researching this, obviously I knew about Tatterfolds. I was a member of the Tatterfolds that came after this, but I'd not heard of the Lindsay Lassies. So it was wonderful to discover that there was this pub dancing that went on. And yeah, so traditional English step clog. And then if you go on to the next slide, and then the Tatterfolds Morris developed out of this. And they still wore clogs on their feet, but it was more the garland dancing, the traditional Morris dancing, but Northwest traditional dances mostly, although I think one or two from other places. And this is one of their earlier flyers, and the pictures of them, again, people will recognise there. Jeff Convery is obviously still singing and running a lot of local sessions. And Fran's there, yeah, Pam's there. And again, Caroline's in that picture. Hello, Caroline in France.
I just opened the hobby centre.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do. And they used to practice at the hobby centre. When I joined and they were practicing at the hobby centre, I must have joined, I think, in about 1986 or 7. Yeah, that's it. Time.
Paul Brown, something to do with the council.
Paul Brown was the council. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Next slide, please. Some more pictures of the Tatterfolds dancing. And there we've got, nice to see a picture of Paul Empson, because Margaret, his wife, danced with the Tatterfolds. Paul that ran the Paul's Music Shop. There's me with the drum, with the lovely curly 80s perm. Yeah, and Andrea Curtis, as I now know, I got the name. Yeah, I believe, I mean, they did, I'm not sure if that might have been from abroad, from the Lunenburg trip. Again, another thing that a lot of the folk club people and the folk dancers got involved in were exchange visits to Clamart in France and Lunenburg in Germany. Again, there was one like going on. Yeah, okay. And Fran has this amazing thing, this big, full of the history of the folk dancers, which she lent me for my research. And I forgot to bring today. I was going to put it on the table. But, you know, hopefully some of that can be scanned and put into the archives here as well. Okay. Right, next one. Oh, thought you might like to see that picture. Do you recognise him? Well, you obviously recognise him. Yeah, do you recognise the guy next to him? Ernie Wise, yeah. Ernie Wise was a champion English clog dancer in the music halls when he was a young man. And I was actually there that day. We were dancing. It was for Walker's Windows, I remember. The only, yeah. And because I think I took that picture, so that's why I got it. And of course he came up. He put one of the costumes on. I think that's probably your jacket, Steve, was wearing, isn't it? And got his picture taken. So yeah. Okay, next slide. Right. I just again, the group that sort of came out of that, the Tatterfall is still going strong. Unfortunately, the bootleggers are not, but that's because it does your knees in, as I'm a testament to. And we had the bootleggers Appalachian dancers, and again, lots of us were involved in the folk scene more widely. But this was after the folk club actually finished in 1990. Yeah. So again, there's various people who might remember the first incarnation was those gingham dresses that made us look like tablecloths. And then those were later ones of various people. Again, pictures of me looking young. And one or two others looking young. Yeah, I don't know, it's getting a little bit greyer in this one. And some of you will know Dick Skinner at the back there. He's got a big beard now.
Stuart at the front, isn't it?
Yeah, Stuart with Doncaster. Yeah. And sort of he had some kind of his Dave
It's not Angus Smith in the green.
yeah.
Because I've been the Smith before.
Yeah, no, that's Jenny Magden. Yeah, Linda's not in that one for some reason, yeah. But lots of wonderful memories. That's dancing at the Festival of the Plough, actually. That's one of the later ones at the top there. Oh, I wish I could get my leg up there now. Yeah, that's Lorna. Yeah, Lorna Finnegan. Yeah. And Sheila Reid on the other side, yeah. Yeah, great. Okay. Right, next one, please. Right, so again, in that later stages, when we were at the Barclay, we celebrated our 21st anniversary as a folk club. So in 1987, we celebrated 21 years, and this is the flyer from that time showing some of the people we booked. And if you look, Catherine Tickell was booked there, voted most promising artist in the 1986 folk groups poll. Dave Berlin, we mentioned earlier, is on there. Lloyd Bailey, that we mentioned earlier, and quite a few others. Roger Wilson, somebody I talked to on Facebook quite a lot. It's still around. Coffelsdale with Graham Pert, again still around in the scene, doing all sorts of things. Robin Garside, Christy Moore, our big jug band. Remember them? They were great. I don't know what happened to them. Yeah. But what we did, we also did a production. We did a staged production, and we had of the transports. The reason I'll just go back a bit. This is actually a quote from Johnny Walker. 26, I was a latecomer to folk music, says Johnny, who confesses that a liking for American protest singer Woody Guthrie brought him into contact with Paul Empson. We soon outgrew the Anderson shelter. So I did actually, this is an article I wrote for a local folk magazine at the time we were having this anniversary, and I interviewed him and also Becky Cleveland. Yeah. Okay, so next one, please. So we did this production of Peter Bellamy's folk opera, The Transports. That's the poster for it. And we did it 3 times. You really won't be jumping. Yeah. And the band, the orchestra, there's all the names there, Steve was in charge of. And we put that on at the Barclay, and Peter Bellamy, who wrote it, came to see it and got very drunk. Howden. Well, then we did it in Howden, and then we did it at Beverley Folk Festival. And I still think that was wonderful. A lot of people still remember enjoying themselves in that. But I listened to I've got an old tape of it, an old video of it, which I've got on DVD now. I listened to that actually, and we sound terrible, but we thought it was good at the time. I don't know. It was better live, I think, than recorded.
It got better by Beverley.
Yes, it got better by the time we got to Beverley, yeah. Right, next slide, please. There's some photographs there from that production. Again, there's a very young looking John there. And there's, Jim Hancock there, and there's Jeff Convery, Keith Brown from Doncaster, Dave Hoy, Jerry again. And there's me, there's Rose Tierney, Rose Sewell, she is now, and Leslie Graham, Leslie. she is now. And there's Margaret Edson singing with me. And yeah. So yeah, it was it's a story about those who don't know, it's a story about a real story from Norfolk about a couple who get transported to Australia for petty crimes. As happened in those days, 1600s, something like that. Bit late 1700s, yeah. And they meet up in jail because then the jail's mixed as well and fall in love and they have a baby and they go to Australia. And it is a true story. And I believe you can even see a memorial in Sydney Harbour or somewhere where they landed, it might be Melbourne, I don't know, about that. Okay, so let's move on. So we branched out into other things and we're getting up to sort of more to date now. We're going to have a go at playing this. This is a clip, a highlights clip from another production, which although there's no more folk club because that was the production from 1987, you saw there, 10 years, 20 years, more than that, 30 years later. Whew. Myself and Roberta Fulford got involved with live art and we decided that we needed to do something like the Transports again, where we would bring folk music, folk dance, folk songs and the singers all together and put on something that would celebrate the local area and the history of the local area. So we did this. So I'm going to play it, hopefully. I'm going to see if we can get the music to play at the same time. They're playing Lincolnshire tunes collected in the area. So, as you saw, a lot of elements that I've been talking about here in that production. The dancers, the Tactical dancers. We also have the broom dance in that, which I'm hoping we're going to be able to feature again when we do the show in Winterton in a few weeks' time, which I'm hoping some of you might buy tickets for. So yeah, and also you saw in the orchestra there, you saw Carol Dawson and Steve LeBeau who run Folk Links project. So another thing that's come out of all of this sort of folk activity is the Folk Links project that goes on mainly from the Rotary Hall in Barton. And they they have all sorts of classes, people learn different folk instruments, folk dance. They have also a folk links band and a youth links project in local schools. And they got initially they got some funding to research the North Lincolnshire folk heritage, and they produced this folk map, which is the next slide, which you can also see online. So, and that folk map sort of is it sort of picks out all the things that go locally. You can't see the whole of it there. It also mentions Mo as one of the folk song collectors in this area, but he wasn't the only one. There were others as well. So that's going to give a picture of the tadpoles there. So yeah, so there's lots going on still, fortunately. As I say, I'll bring this all up to date. So if we go on to the next one. We also went on and did a few smaller productions. I think that initial one you've just seen a video on. We did a couple in the church. We did one around the idea of the folk songs that were collected in 1905 in the folk song class that they had as part of Brig Festival, where they discovered the songs that Percy Granger noted down, Brig Fair being the most famous one from Joseph Taylor and other local singers. So we did something on that. We also did a one about the spring and folk songs of the spring out at Curtin Lindsay. So there's various just a few pictures there of the sorts of things we've done as a result of that. I'm going to bring performance into folk song and folk dance. Right, the next one. Oh, and the last one we did, probably the last one we will ever do really, was the Songs of Love and War, which we did working with David Waite, who's an amazing English teacher at Sir John Nelthorpe School in Brig, who researched a lot of the memories of people who used to go to the school, old boys of the school who died in the First and Second World Wars. And using those memories, we put together this Songs of Love and War, again using folk songs going back to the Crimea and the Napoleonic Wars, right up to modern day. I remember, John, you sang a song, a folk song of sorts, didn't you, in that production? What was it?
It was the I'm fixing to die black. Right, it was first song. Joe MacDonald, it's got.
Yeah. So just making the point that folk song, yes, it goes back hundreds of years, but it's folk songs are still being written today. So that was and Bob Cuthbertson was running the band there, and it nearly killed him, but he's still with us. So yeah. So next slide, please. Okay, and just to sort of bring it totally up to date, there are still folk sessions going on in the area. Many of them are thriving, and there's just a few sort of bits there. I run one which some of the people in Rumley go to at the Black Beauty, which is a lovely community pub in the heart of Bottisford on a Sunday afternoon. It's a tea time folk once a month. But there's also Jeff Convery runs a whole load of different things, and Steve runs a few things, and Zoom sessions as well for people who can't get to the clubs. They can join online. So we run once a month. Again, I think quite a few of you involved in that. At Cafe Independent in the High Street. Most of these are once a month.
So
Should have been today, but
it's next week.
it's going to be next Wednesday. Next Wednesday. Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, but it's next Wednesday. Yeah.
Should have been tomorrow.
And if you're not already on our Folk Round Here mailing list, you won't know necessarily about these, particularly if you don't do Facebook and Instagram, where it's also up. But if you do want to join the mailing list, there's a chance to do that at the end. So you'll get 4 times a year, you'll get a newsletter that lists all of these. So you know.
More staff that go to the Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
So
it's becoming more folky.
is it?
Yeah, it really is becoming more folk oriented. The last few meetings with it has been, it's been an absolute joy because even people that go to other sessions, because they're eclectic and so we do something folk now, and they'll come back with
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
additional ones. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
turning round again.
Yeah, we're quite eclectic at the Black Beauty one, aren't we? We had some cracking stuff on Sunday. Some really funny songs as well. We've got a few really clever local writers who are writing stuff as well. We'll come to that. So, but yeah, everything from sixties pop and blues to Americana and country at that one. Right, okay, next one. Right, and then just coming up to date even more, one of the things that the project we've been involved in over the last year was obviously this CD. And I imagine a lot of you, how many of you have got a copy of this? Go on, put your hands up if you've got that. Oh, there's a few more to be sold, I think, yeah. You can buy it downstairs in the museum, and I maybe shouldn't say this, but if you buy it from me, it's £1 cheaper because they have to pay VAT. I don't pay VAT. And there's a 16-page booklet in here about all the songs and also about the singers, because it's a celebration of the local singers as much. And the producer is here, and Bob Cuthbertson and Daz Everton just spent hours in the studio putting this all together. And we all went in and recorded our songs, and they did wonders with them. And that's just a sort of highlight that. And then finally, I think, yeah, just a plug at the end of all this before we go over sort of question answer and chatting about things. Again, if you could take your flyer with you, if it's not of interest to you, please can you give it to somebody who is, because we really need to get people to this. To celebrate the exhibition that's been on at the museum, which finishes on the 5th of May. First week of May. The week before, we are doing an evening of traditional songs and local history. It's a version of the shorter one we did last year in Whitby at the Folk Festival, but this one's 2 parts with an interval where there'll be pie and pea served. And it's in the Winterton Church, which is a fabulous venue. It's absolutely lovely. The money's going to the church so it can stay open as an arts centre, which they put on quite a lot of good stuff. And we've got a free workshop in the afternoon for anybody who wants to either see the plough jag being performed or learn some of the songs that the plough jaggers sing in the pubs. There's a free session in the afternoon at 2:30, and then the evening it's only £10, including your pie and peas or vegetarian alternative. But if you want to go, you need to reserve your tickets by email to me, or you can sign up on the list I brought today, and I'll make sure that they'll be on the door for you. So that really is it. So, John, is there anything I've missed out? Have we read everything? I think we've managed to read all of these now. Yeah, we have. Oh, I love that one. Yeah, there's a couple of others. We'll just finish with a couple more memories from people who went to the boat club.
Which there about Martin, John Davis remembered that Mo used to bring Martin's castle in brace of rabbits every time we appeared.
They didn't just get paid, you got rabbits as well.
And a little note, Tim Hart married prior, Jill stayed with Jill and John. And you'll recall, I mean, Tim Hart and Manny stayed at their house and taken a whole lump bread in the tin from the pantry when they left.
You've got pains and bread and rabbits. So, yeah.
Got the cat.
So, I don't know, any other memories of the boat club that we haven't covered? Have we left anything out, those of you who remember going? Again, I should have asked this at the beginning. Can you put your hand up if you went to Scunthorpe Folk Song Club at any point in the past? That's no, it's about 3/4 of you, not everybody. So welcome those who didn't. Now you know what you missed.
I think there was that eclectic mix sometimes because I remember putting on musical songs and a musical night, and then there was some sort of rock and pop. There was the Bonzo Dog and there were odd nights. And I remember very vividly. I mean, Dick, who's not here today, is an absolute wonder. He got up dressed as a rocker with a guitar, hair all over the place, big jacket. And he actually played this guitar, and he's playing along there. It's in tune and it's playing, and all of a sudden it just exploded. And how he got the thing, because he designed to press a button and this flash went off, and the neck came away from the body. Now, to get an instrument to actually play, and then be designed to fall apart, wonderful. And of course, the wearer is coat.
Yeah, this made me a couple of coats. It made my wedding coat actually. Yeah. And
We was at school when we used to go, we still managed to become our youths
yeah,
at the Barclay, and we moved to college, it was within walking distance. And when Martin Simpson came to Scunthorpe recently, I didn't know that he only lived about 600 yards from where I was living. Both lines.
Yeah.
We both grew up in the same area.
yeah.
But we used to, I had a very sheltered life. The folk nights were on a Sunday, so to school on Monday. So come on these, mum and dad used to, and Tony and I used to actually walk from New Bromley all the way to Scunthorpe
Yeah.
and back again. But we because it was all day the next day, we didn't go to many of the bookings.
Yeah.
But the come on leave was one a month, so when my dad used to let me go, and we carried on for about 3.5, 4 years doing that.
I remember we
I
had,
remember John,
yeah.
I remember Bob. I remember there used to be a man at the door that used to take our money, but he never sang.
Would that be?
Remember who that man was?
Yeah, strange, isn't it? It's strange because he was the treasurer.
It was the man at the door.
Yeah.
And when I came back, when I moved back to the area in 85, then got back to Brick, or it was the Brick Scouts. And Dave Barlow remembered me. I couldn't remember him as Dave Barlow. I just knew that there was a man there that he never liked the weather that
Yeah.
until now.
Why don't you come up and have a look at Dave?
Remember him?
Yeah.
Johnny Walk, because they used to work, when the time progressed, Johnny Walk and I actually worked at the same building. So, Cleveland remembered me as well. But I
Well,
can't remember.
perfect cue, because I'm just going to play a song to finish us officially, and then we can just all chat and have fun. But I'm just going to play this one song because this is Bob Cleveland, who unfortunately died at 91. But he was a fabulous singer, and these are recordings that we had from the 1970s, the Folk Club Singers. So I'm just going to play.
On the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Where you go, as he goes.
I've been doing it.
I will all together to go wild mountain thyme, all around the moon. Where you go, I will build my love about her, by one pure and crystal fountain, and on it I will pile all the flowers of the mountain. Where you go, I will walk the road together to the wild mountain side, all around the moon. Where you go, oh, if my love won't go, I will surely find another to go wild mountain thyme, all around the blooming heather. Will you I will to go on the mountains high, all around the blooming heather. Will oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Oh, will and we all around the